All right, UFC Vegas 103, Kape versus Almabayev, full card predictions. Usually, I write sort of this, well, not write a script, but have a good amount of notes for the card. But honestly, I feel like this card didn't earn me doing that. So I'm just going to scroll through Tapology, read out my picks, try to give some perspective, maybe just yap a bunch. Yeah, here we go. Starting from the very bottom. Montana De La Rosa versus Luana Carolina. Both of them kind of suck, if we're being honest. Montana De La Rosa 13-9-1, ugly record. Win over Andrea Lee in split decision. Losses to JJ Aldrich. I mean, Macy Barber and Tatiana Suarez aren't terrible. Just their losses, and her wins aren't that good. Luana Carolina, her wins are also not very good. Ivana Petrovic, Julia Stolarenko, and Lucy Podolova, but I don't know, got momentum. Not younger, but like more of a prospect, I guess. So I'm gonna pick her to win. She also has more of a chance of a finish. So yeah, Luana Carolina, I'll pick her. She's pretty horrible, and I wouldn't be surprised if she lost. But so is Montana De La Rosa. So there's that. Next fight of the card. This is one of probably the top 3 fight on this card. Charles Johnson versus Ramazan Temirov. Charles Johnson just completely disrespected. I mean, he beat Suma Duerji in his last fight. He knocked out Joshua Van, who I think is ranked now or just outside the rankings. Beat Jake Hadley, I think on short notice, and beat Azat Maxim all in the last year. And they gave him, a guy who is undefeated in the UFC, a winner in the UFC, a pretty big prospect in Ramazan Temirov. Fortunately for Charles Johnson, I'm pretty sure he's going to win this fight. I just think he's a lot better. Like, I think he's pretty underrated. I don't know why he's the underdog. Temirov really hasn't proven anything. He's got a lot of early finishes, but he hasn't fought anyone that good. CJ Vergara, really not good. His only win in the UFC, and he beat Takaki Soya and Risen. And he's one of the Risen fighters who just, like, if you don't know, especially with the flyweight division, Risen, they just have like their 5 guys they like, and they feed them complete bums. It's a little different at the other divisions, and sometimes in flyweight they make them fight each other, but like it's Kyoji Horiguchi, Kaya Sakura, Manel Kape was there for a while. Temirov, he only had 2 fights in Risen, but he was kind of like that. That Italian guy that Kape and Kyoji Horiguchi fought, it was them, and they all just kind of got fed bums and then fought each other. But there wasn't like anyone in between who was good. And Temirov only fought these bums. So him being 2-0 in Risen, 1-0 in the UFC, not very impressive to me. Charles Johnson, much more proven. Obviously, not as clean of a record. He's got 1 less win and 4 more losses, but his competition has been way higher, and he's actually been improving a lot. He's also got a huge size advantage. I mean, he's a pretty big flyweight. He's 5'9", but next to other flyweights, he looks like he's 6'2". He's got a 7-inch reach advantage, 5-inch height advantage. Fights out of a really good gym. I think he's just a better fighter. Again, I don't really understand why he's the underdog. Temirov, known for getting those early finishes, but when he isn't fighting, terrible fighters. Let me just look at his record real quick, because if I remember correctly, wasn't very good. Yeah, bunch of early finishes. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 first-round finishes in a row. But anytime he fights anyone decent, he goes to a decision or he loses the fight. 2019, he lost 2 fights in a row. He lost to... Listen, I'm not going to try to pronounce these names. You can go look at it yourself. But he had... What the hell? He has an elbow liver finish, but against an 0-0 guy. And then 5-1, 4-1. Like, these are the kind of guys he was beating. He was at the fake octagon, the one with a C instead of a K. So I just don't really like his competition. I think he's a fine fighter, but I actually think Charles Johnson's pretty good. He should definitely be ranked. And I think he should have a shot at the rankings. If he wins this, I hope he gets a fight against a Tim Elliott or, someone ranked even higher than him. 5 wins in a row. I think he was an underdog most of his fights too. I don't think the UFC wanted him to win against Jake Hadley. I don't think the UFC wanted him to win against Joshua Van. He beat Azat Maxim, who, much like Ramazan Temirov, Uzbekistani, has a kind of a fishy record. So I think Charles Johnson's just a better guy. I think he's going to get it done, and it's flyweight, so probably by decision. Next fight at the card, Andrea Lee versus JJ Aldrich. It's women's MMA when someone is 36 years old, 5 losses in a row, and they're a slight underdog. So I'm going to pick JJ Aldrich to win. I mean, she's pretty bad too, 13-7 versus 13-10. But she beat Na Liang, who's not terrible. She finished Na Liang, and she beat Montana De La Rosa, who is terrible, but not super terrible. And also, Montana De La Rosa beat Andrea Lee, given it was by split decision. But Andrea Lee's pretty old, pretty inactive. Doesn't really, she doesn't really have the style. Like, she goes through a lot of decisions, and because of her style, she kind of loses a lot of decisions. Like, she lost her last 5 fights all by decision, and 2 of them were split. And I just think that if she had maybe a more, better looking style, she probably would have won those fights. So if this goes to decision, which it almost definitely will, because both of them like to go to decision, I think she's less likely to win. And I think if it's not going to go to decision, JJ Aldrich is definitely going to get a finish. Andrea Lee hasn't gotten a finish since the Stone Age. So I couldn't think of something longer. Since, I don't know. I couldn't think of anything funny. Okay. Next fight up the card, Lucas Almeida versus Danny Silva. Danny Silva is just I don't know who to pick, actually, because I thought I picked Danny Silva, but I guess I had picked... Danny Silva has only fought bums. He fought Angel Pacheco on the Contender Series. Didn't look good. Angel Pacheco isn't good. Beat him. He beat, in his fight before that in LFA, he beat Alex Valentino Arteaga. Knocked him out, but that guy was 4-1. He lost to 6-2 Cannon, or however you pronounce that, Kauai. And beat a 4-0 guy. Like, he's just only fought not very good fighters. And Lucas Almeida, I think, is kind of legit. Lost to Pat Sabatini, who's a really good grappler, and lost to Andre Philly, who, not a terrible fighter, like definitely, above the level of fighters that Danny Silva has fought. And then Danny Silva missed weight and won a robbery over Josh Kulabau, who I think is pretty good, but I would pick Lucas Almeida to beat Josh Kulabau. And the degree that Lucas Almeida is better than Josh Kulabau is enough that if Danny Silva goes to a decision with him, Lucas Almeida would win that. So that's what I'm going to pick. I'm going to pick Lucas Almeida to win by decision. I just think he's a higher level fighter, a little more proven. He's got some years on Danny Silva, and I think he'll use that experience to win this fight. I just don't think Danny Silva is that much of a prospect. 28, 9-1, not the most active guy either. So I think Lucas Almeida will take this. I get why he's an underdog. Obviously, Danny Silva, pretty touted prospect, I guess. I don't know if you win in the Contender Series, that makes you touted. But I can see Danny Silva being the kind of guy who starts off 9-1 in the UFC, or 8-1, and ends up, 10-6 and gets cut, or 10-4. Next fight up the card, Douglas Silva de Andrade versus John Castaneda. I really think Douglas Silva de Andrade is not a good fighter. He's 40 almost. Gone to decision a lot recently. Hasn't gotten to finish in 3 years, and that was against Sergey Morozov, and before that, Gaetano Parillo, who both those guys, you probably don't know the names because they've been cut from the UFC, not very good anymore. I just think that his style requires him to get a finish to get a clear win, and he hasn't gotten to finish in 3 years. I just think John Castaneda is a little better. A loss to Daniel Marcos, not a bad loss. Lost to Daniel Santos, not a great loss, but that was 2 years ago, kind of fluky. It wasn't, whatever. It was a knee, so, Beat Moon Gafrov, beat Kyung Ho Kang. Kyung Ho Kang kind of sucks, but Moon Gafrov, not a terrible win. Moon Gafrov just beat, whatever that guy's name is, the Japanese guy. So that's a pretty solid win, and he choked out Miles Johns, who beat Douglas Silva de Andrade. And Douglas Silva de Andrade, if you watch that fight between Miles Johns and Douglas Silva de Andrade, pretty boring fight, and I think that if a similar fight happens where they're just going to be on the outside poking at each other, John Castaneda is going to be better. He's also shorter and has a longer reach, which is a pretty good physical advantage, and is 6 years younger. So I thought he was actually pretty young. He's 33, so I don't know how much that's going to matter, but that's a lot younger than 40. So next fight up the card, Ricardo Ramos versus Chepe Mariscal. I think Chepe Mariscal is actually really good, and I'm going to pick him because of that. Ricardo Ramos is... Oh, wait, maybe I'm tripping. I think I said earlier that Danny Silva won us... Was he the one that robbed Josh Kulabau, or is that Ricardo Ramos? I don't know. Regardless, I'm not going to change my picks. Ricardo Ramos Yeah, it was him. He won a robbery over Josh Kulabau. Should have lost. Lost, back to back against Julian Rosa and Charles Jourdain. And lost to Zubair Tukhugov, who's not that good. So he's a pretty inconsistent fighter. He's win one or win a couple, lose a couple. And Chepe Mariscal is kind of on a really good run right now. 30-25 Damon Jackson, which was a pretty impressive performance. Got on top and beat him up. Beat Morgan Charrier, who, I think he arguably lost that fight, but Morgan Charrier is pretty good, especially with his record, or for his record. Jack Jenkins, I'll ignore that fight because it was kind of fluky. Trevor Peek, that's a good win. Not a great win, but I think that Trevor Peek would be a favorite against Ricardo Ramos. And yeah, so he's 4-0 on the UFC, 4 in a row. Looked really good in all of his fights. And then, like I said, Ricardo Ramos just pretty inconsistent. Like Damon Jackson, Ricardo Ramos, good submission artist, good off his back. Maybe you don't want to be in his guard, but if you saw what Chepe Mariscal did to Damon Jackson, you wouldn't think that mattered. So I also think Elevation is a better gym than Team Alpha Male. I think that Team Alpha Male is pretty good for fighters that aren't like Ricardo Ramos. Yeah, I think Chepe Mariscal is just better run, better fighter, looking a little bit older, got more experience. So they have the exact same record, but and you can argue that Ricardo Ramos' losses are to better fighters, but I just think the way Chepe Mariscal's looked recently, it's hard to pick against him, especially to a guy who's not ranked, who, coming off only one win, had got finished, twice in the last 2 years. Yeah, I'm going to pick Chepe Mariscal. Sorry if I'm a little yappy. I probably should have scripted a little bit of this, but like I said, this fight just doesn't deserve it. So yeah. Next fight of the card, Austen Lane versus Mario Pinto. Austen Lane, I don't think I'm ever going to pick him again unless he fights Rebellis to Spain again. He isn't good. He's just a little athletic, and maybe that's what it takes to beat Mario Pinto. He's kind of a fat heavyweight, and that's that's not what you want. But Mario Pinto, 9-0, good prospect. He's got knockout power. Knocked out Luis Camacho on the Contender Series. I want to say he was an underdog in that fight. Let me check. Nope, he was a huge favorite. I take it back. But yeah, he's got finishing power. He looks kind of athletic. Austen Lane, the only way he can beat you is if you're really fat. And even then, he got knocked out by Justin Tafa, and he got knocked out by Gennaro Diniz, who both of them I think aren't pretty good. And Mario Pinto is 6'5". And so Austen Lane, his only physical advantage that he's had over those guys, he's not going to have over Mario Pinto. So I'm going to pick Pinto to just knock out Austen Lane. Hopefully retire him from the UFC, send him to the GFL, send him to PFL, send him wherever. I just don't think Austen Lane is a UFC level. He's just athletic. And unfortunately, that's enough to beat probably 10% of the heavyweight roster. So I guess it's only 3 fighters because there's only 30 heavyweights. But Mario Pinto is good enough, whatever. I think that's enough words to say for this fight. Not a very exciting fight. On to the main card, we've got a pretty solid fight, pretty interesting fight. 2 good prospects. We've got Danny Barlow and Sam Patterson. I'm going to pick Danny Barlow just because, I'll get to that in a second, but I want to say this before I explain why he's good. I think he's not as good as he's being touted, and I'm not just saying that because he went to a split decision with Nikolai Vretnikov, who just got whooped by Austin Vanderford. I'm saying that because he just hasn't looked as good as he should. The win against Raheem Forrest is good. Raheem Forrest is actually a pretty solid fighter, and I like him having a knockout over Raheem Forrest. But then again, Raheem Forrest lost his last fight. Now he's at Attitude MMA fights. So maybe Raheem Forrest isn't a very good win. Raheem Forrest also lost to Charles Radke, who sucks. But the Josh Quinlan performance wasn't all that. And I think Danny Barlow had a broken arm or something like that in that fight. And maybe he was also injured in his last fight because he missed weight. And he looked like he couldn't let go of the trigger. But the Josh Quinlan performance just wasn't that good. He took him to round 3 to get a knockout. Josh Quinlan, clearly not a very good fighter, just doesn't have a very good UFC record. That being said, I'm going to pick Danny Barlow, and that's because, Sam Patterson, I think he's pretty solid, and I think he's a good underdog in this, but hasn't beaten anyone that good. Beat Vinicius Sensi on the Contender Series, literally who? Choked out Johan Lanes, who we know isn't very good. choked out Kiefer Crosby, who we know isn't very good. Lost to Jan Schmooze, who is a lightweight, got knocked out. And obviously Sam Patterson is a huge lightweight, 6'3", 78 inches of reach. That's pretty solid for a lightweight. However, he kind of got, from what I've seen in his fights at, was it KSW? He's either at KSW or UFC. Brave. Okay, it was neither. In his wins at Brave, he uses tall man defense a lot, which he can do at 155. Tall man defense, if you don't know, is just leaning back because you're taller and slipping out of punches just by the nature of being tall. But he kind of has the habit, and that's kind of how he got yacht against Jan Schmooze. But at 170, especially against a guy like Danny Barlow, who is a long 170, has a longer reach, and overthrows his punches, you can't really use that. That's how you get caught. And I think that habit is just going to get Sam Patterson caught early. Most fighters that have like a grappling advantage and want to use grappling in their fight kind of stay on the outside at the beginning, kind of get the timing down of their opponents so they can time the takedown. And I think Sam Patterson is going to try to do that early and try to get out of the way of a punch and then just get caught with another one because he leaned back instead of blocking or slipping or getting out of the way. I mean, that's how you pick Danny Barlow. He's got that really good left hand. He's got knockout power, and he's not the most technical striker, but I think he's got the style to land a left-handed knockout Sam Patterson. Sam Patterson also just looks like the kind of guy who gets knocked out. He's 6'3", but if he had a normal neck, he'd be like 6 foot even. So, yeah, I'm gonna take Danny Barlow. I definitely could see Sam Patterson. I think Sam Patterson could outstrike him and win a decision. A lot of people are picking Sam Patterson by submission, and I totally think Sam Patterson can just win a decision by being a better grappler. And if Danny Barlow doesn't land that one, he's not the most technical striker. He's not the guy who's going to win on the outside over 3 rounds. Arguably lost to Nikolai Vretnikov, who we know isn't good. So, could be Sam Patterson, but I just think that matchup where Sam Patterson likes to leave his chin, it's going to get him knocked out. All right, next fight at the card, Hyder Amil versus William Gomis. I don't think Hyder Amil is very good. Kind of a deceiving record at 10-0. Good nickname, fitting nickname, the Hurricane. If you watch his last fight, that's kind of what he did. Kind of just crowded and swarmed Jung Lee and won a quick, 40-punch combo TKO. But I think William Gomis is too good for that. His win over Joanderson Brito, I think he arguably could have lost. But, Joanderson Brito is pretty good. A lot better than Hyder Amil. And I just don't think Hyder Amil is going to... I guess he could just swarm William Gomis. Why not? But when it comes to who's a better fighter, it's definitely William Gomis. Hyder Amil is also 10-0 at 35. So, get a life, you fucking 35-year-old prospect. He's just also 3 inches shorter, 3 inches less reach. So, yeah, I just think a better fighter, William Gomis, probably going to win the fight. Hyder Amil can always get a finish. I don't know why the odds are so close. I think William Gomis should probably be like minus 400. Hyder Amil isn't good at fighting. Beat Fernie Garcia. Welcome to the club. Beat Jung Young Lee. Good for you. So that's my take on that. Hyder Amil is kind of I saw an edit of him today, so I've just been mad about him all day. But yeah. Next fight at the card. This fight should be the co-main event, but it's not. Nasrat Haqparast versus Esteban Ribovics. Nasrat, a little overrated, I think. Clearly lost to Jared Gordon, even though I think I picked Nasrat to win that fight. Clearly lost to Jared Gordon. Beat Jamie Malarkey. Welcome to the club. Beat Landon Quinones. Landon Quinones isn't very good. Beat John McDessie. Welcome to the club. That's kind of my take on Nasrat's 4-fight win streak. Before that, he lost to Bobby Green. It was a better Bobby Green then than now, but I think Esteban would be a big favorite against Bobby Green. Esteban Ribovics, not the best win against Cam Willa-Kirk, but improved a lot. Got the really good knockout over Terrence McKinney. And before his last fight, you can say kind of a fraudulent record. You can say that head kick's a fluke. Cam Willa-Kirk win wasn't very good. Lost his debut to Loic Radzhabov, who's obviously good, but a loss is a loss. Beat Thomas Powell in contender series, but he's a bum. But his last performance was really, really good. I picked against Ribovics in his last fight against El Huber because he just doesn't look like a technical guy. And a lot of times when they don't look technical, they're just not very good at fighting. But sometimes when they're not technical, they're just unorthodox and they make it work and they end up being really good. You see that with Duplessis. You see that with Strickland. You see that with, other guys, they don't necessarily have like an equalizer like Pereira. Like Pereira's obviously not super orthodox, but he makes up for it for being really smart in kickboxing and having that equalizer. But other guys are just unorthodox. They have their own style and they make it work. And Ribovics is kind of like that. He's not as unorthodox as Duplessis or Strickland, but he's pretty unorthodox. He's not the most technical guy, and he makes it work. And he's looked really good. He's really good at landing punches and finding people's chins. He had that really good head kick against the beginning, and I just think he's gonna, outstrike Nasrat. I don't think Nasrat is a very good fighter. And yeah, I think Ribovics is actually pretty solid. I think he'll find his way into the rankings. I don't know how long he'll be there or how far I'll get up there, but some of those guys on the outside, I think he'd be a favorite against if he wins this fight. And if Hoofy wins his fight, I feel like that'd be a really good fight to make. Them two. Mauricio Huff is getting really underrated right now. It's kind of upsetting. I saw people say like he's the odd sheep or the black sheep of the fighting nerds, but I think he's really good. I don't know. That's a story for another day. Maybe I'll talk about that when he fights Bobby Green, whenever that fight is. But yeah, Ribovics, he looked really good his last two fights. I don't know why he's in the Apex. He just had a crazy good fight. Fighter of the year. He had a really good knockout, arguably knockout, a knockout of the year contendant before that. And he's in the Apex. He's also Argentinian. Not a lot of Argentinian fighters. Argentina is a big country. Probably should try to make him into a star, and the UFC just doesn't care. So he's at a worse gym than Nasrat, so maybe Nasrat will game plan a really good, maybe Frostavi will game plan a really good game plan. But I just don't think Nasrat's very good, and I think Esteban Ribovics is proven to be pretty good. So I'm taking him to win. Next fight up the card. This is a co-main event in 2025. Just remind, co-main event. This is according to the UFC, the second best fight on this card. Cody Brundage versus Julian Marquez. I thought about just flipping a coin to pick this, and maybe I will. Do I have a coin? I do have a coin. Okay, heads, I'm picking Cody Brundage. That's not a quarter. Heads, I'm picking Cody Brundage, and Julian Marquez is tails. Okay, I got tails. I'm picking Julian Marquez. Let me try to reverse engineer an explanation. Okay, Cody Brundage, I think, has the most fraudulent record ever. Lost to Cedric Demas. Cedric Demas clearly not very good at fighting. Beat Jacob Malkoun, who sucks by a DQ. So should have lost it. His record should be 9-7. Okay, which is worse than Julian Marquez's 9-5. Okay, after that, slam TKO, fluke win over Zachary's. Okay, he should be 8-10-8. Okay. Lost to Bo Nickel. Bo Nickel, not as good as we thought he was, maybe. I don't know. He's still undefeated, but the jury's still out on him. No contest to Abdul Razak Al Hassan. He got finished, given it was with back of the head shots, but I would say 9 out of 10 times, 8 out of 10 times, that doesn't get called a no contest as it gets all lost. So arguably he should be 8-9. And that's just in his last 5 fights. Let me see if I can go back even farther. Lost to Rodolfo Vieira, who just lost to Andre Petrosky. Lost to Mikhail Kuzichuk, who got submitted by Kevin Holland. He beat Trayshawn Gore. Welcome to the club. Trayshawn Gore was 3-1 when they fought. It's arguably his best win. He beat Dalcho Lagumbiala. Again, welcome to the club. Also, kind of a fluke win. Guillotine arguably should be 7-10. Debut in the UFC, lost to Nick Maximov, who's a bum. Got finished by William Knight. It's kind of a bum. I don't know. He just isn't very good. I think he might be the worst fighter in the UFC. I mean, he's one of the worst fighters at arguably the worst weight class. Well, other than heavyweight, I'd say middleweight is the worst. Especially, I feel like the heavyweight, light heavyweight, and middleweight are all really bad points in UFC history right now. In that, Cody Brundage might be the worst fighter at middleweight. So, Julian Marquez, obviously not a very good fighter. 0-3, lost to Zachary's, who Cody Brundage did slam to knock out. Lost to Marc-Andre Barrios, who isn't good. Got Stan TKO'd. Lost to Gregor Rodriguez. That's a pretty solid loss. Obviously losses aren't solid, and especially getting finished. However, Gregor Rodriguez has proven to be pretty solid. Beat Sam Alvey. Jeez, this was a rough record. That was almost 4 years ago he beat Sam Alvey. One of Sam Alvey's, I think he lost. He had a streak where he lost 8, had a no contest, or had a draw. Beat Maki Patola. Man, Julian Marquez beating anyone good? Did he have a head kick? Split decision loss to Alessio Chirico, after missing weight. Jeez. Beat Darren Stewart. Hey, Darren Stewart's pretty solid. Had a head kick on the contender series against Phil Haas. Hey, those are 2 good wins. More than can be said for all of Cody Brundage's career. Who, by the way, Cody Brundage started his professional career in 2019. He made his professional debut. His amateur debut 2 months after Julian Marquez finished Phil Haas. So I'm just going to say, using that experience that Julian Marquez has, I'm going to say he's going to win. So, yeah, there's that. And I'm not picking him because I just flipped a coin. Main event. Okay, this is a fight I'm looking forward to. I like Manel Kape. I'm okay with Almabayev. It's interesting that he beat Jose Johnson, Ode Osborne, and CJ Vergara, and got jumped up to Mateus Nicola, who was ranked like number 8. Won that, and is now fighting Manel Kape, who is, he's been basically a title eliminator. When Charles Johnson beat 5 guys in a row and is fighting Ramazan Temirov. Interesting. I don't really know how good Almabayev is. Obviously, Mateus Nicolau looked like a good win at the time. Nicolau is a decent guy, has a win over Manel Kape. Arguably a robbery, but win over Manel Kape. But he got cut after that fight, so I don't know, maybe he isn't that good. Beat Jose Johnson, who's a bum, just really tall. CJ Vergara again, like I said before, bum. Ode Osborne, that's a decent. He finished him, but Manel Kape finished him in the first round with a flying knee. Maybe that's the second round. Let me check. Yeah, it was the first round. So Manel Kape is a better win over Ode Osborne, and then he just fought a ton of bums in Europe. Lost to Takiro Ulanbekov, which is decent loss. Lost to Mahman Mamedov, who is 7-6. Not a good loss, but that was forever ago. He's in Risen. Yeah. Just watched him fight. Oh, that was 2 years ago. Never mind. Whatever. Sorry, I'm going a little trying to think. Whatever. I'm just going to pick Manel Kape just because he's a bigger. My point in pick Manel Kape is that he has kind of an on mode and an off mode. Like he looked really good against Bruno Silva a month ago, and he looked really good against Felipe dos Santos on his unstricken card, and he looked really good against David Dvorak, and he looked good against Zalgas and Magulov, and he looked good against Ode Osborne. But he has, even in the Ode Osborne fight, he was doing pretty much nothing until he landed the flying knee. And in the Zalgas fight, wasn't doing a ton before he got that knockout. But in his other fights, he looked pretty solid. He also had the Makaya performance. He was off the entire fight, didn't really go for anything. Lost that by decision. And if he has that kind of performance, I think he's going to lose. The reason why I don't think he's going to have that performance is, one, the most switched-on performance he's ever had was a month and a half ago. Like, he's usually pretty inactive, and when he's being, when he just had his best performance, now he's being active. It makes me think he switched on. Also, Vegas has him as a pretty big favorite, which makes me think that they think he's going to be on, which is more than I can say about Almabayev. Again, I just don't. I think of the Kazakhstani, Uzbekistani prospects coming into the UFC at flyweight, he's one of the better ones. I thought his performance against Nicolau was actually pretty solid, but I just think Kape switched on, and if he switched on, he can beat pretty much anyone in flyweight. So that's what I have to say about that fight. God, I don't know how I got 30 minutes out of this. I'm never doing this again. I'm going to have a script for all my future videos. But I don't know how I got 30 minutes out of this dog shit card. Yeah, Manel Kape, hopefully he wins. Yeah, hopefully this card is entertaining. There's pretty much a no-name value. I'm probably going to skip a bunch of the fights. But yeah, let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments. Like the video, share the video, subscribe. Click the link to my Twitter down below, etc., etc. Thanks for watching.